I'm Brian Bender, and let's queer up politics. Viral Pride video sparks debate as gay Trump supporter defends the administration's LGBTQ policies. A viral Instagram reel filmed outside of Trump Tower in New York City after New York City Pride is drawing widespread attention for a tense exchange between journalist Walter Masterson, trans activist Lorelei Crean, and a group of self-described MAGA gays. The interviews focus on LGBTQ+ rights, HIV funding, and transgender healthcare. Masterson opens the video by saying, quote, "If I sound confused, that's because I am," end quote. When he said the workplace protections and HIV funding are under direct attack in the Trump administration, one interviewee responded, quote, "I don't think any of that's true. During his first administration, he was actually on a mission to eradicate HIV in the United States," end quote. Commenters identified the interviewer as Brandon Straka, a conservative activist who has participated in the January 6th Capitol riot. Straka pleaded guilty in 2021 to one count of disorderly conduct at the Capitol as part of a plea agreement, received 3 years of probation, and was ultimately pardoned by President Donald Trump in January of 2025. The video quickly spread online, prompting reactions ranging from "Oh my God, wake up, Mary," to, quote, "I'm so embarrassed for him," end quote. Well, I love this guy's, his interviews where he'll go to like a MAGA fest or a NASCAR meeting or something in a small town, and everybody will be wrapped in like an American flag, or they'll be wearing a T-shirt that says, "These colors don't run," or "God bless the USA." Which, don't get me wrong, I don't think one side of the political aisle can say "God bless America," and I love to wear me an American flag. I actually have an America 250. But I've never voted Republican. I just want to say that. So I don't think there's one side of the aisle that can claim patriotism, but I love it when he goes up to these unassuming people who are draped in the American flag, starts talking about gay people. They start talking about the rainbow flag, and he goes, "Yeah, don't you think it's so awful when people base their whole identity around, a flag, or base their whole identity around a certain identity?" And they lose the plot because they're literally wrapped in their identity of the American flag. So, bravo to him and this guy, Straka. You can live wherever you want to live. You can live in the United States. You could live, happy for you that you were pardoned. I don't mean what you did, in my humble opinion, or what you didn't do. I don't know the legalese behind that. I think you still committed something, even if you were pardoned, because I think part of receiving a pardon is that you have to admit guilt. So there was some guilt admitted there. Happy you're able to continue on with your life. Hope we don't cross paths in the future. And what a coincidence that you were, caught on camera, or you wanted to be interviewed and talk about how wonderful the Trump administration is. I hope you get a job with them. Good for you.
I think it's important also to note that, like, the facts that he was saying that the Trump administration has not gone after the LGBT community has actually been a supporter. Just this month, there's 4 things that happened within this month, or last month, actually, in June. But it was more cutting of HIV funding and AIDS funding for South Africa, where we know that it's a horrific issue there. And with U.S. aid having been cut, there's less medication and education going out to those communities and those countries, which means that they have more unstable governments, because as their hierarchy, as you will, or political leaders get sick, there's no one to backfill into that because of their education system, their social and economic system. So, right there, we can say, yes, he has hurt the LGBT community. I think it's the Department of Education Office of Civil Rights is stopped pursuing cases of hate against transgender. That also came up this past month. So there's so many incidences where you can point to actual fact of being discriminated against, being put on, being marginalized, within that administration that you can't just say he's done nothing but support us. As a MAGA or gay person, yes, these things are facts. Like, you can pull it up, you can look at the statistics, you can see where the money was taken away from. So I think it's great that the interviewer caught him and made him make these statements, where he voluntarily made these statements that are not accurate.
Yeah, no, and I think it's great that you had different generations. You had a 17-year-old trans activist, Lorelei, and then, the Walter, and the timing was great. And I hope that we have more conversations like that, because I think it's important to show the contrast even within our own community. You look at, we could go on and on about this topic. It would make a great topic just for a show. But, we look at the power struggles within the LGBTQ alphabet and, the divisiveness, and we can't let the right wing rip us apart. We need to remember that we need to be, we don't have to, we can agree to disagree, but we need to be, united as a community.
Right. And I don't think it matters which where you fall under the spectrum. Whether you're LGBTQ or you're straight, there should never be a complete agreement. I think disagreement and discord creates conversation where you can learn more about the people that you are interacting with, and ultimately hopefully find, no one should ever win in politics. Everyone should lose something. There should be a compromise. And so I just think, I'm with you on it.
Because I'm a history teacher, I'd like to just interject this. There's always been bootlickers in every political movement. There has always been people that are willing.
Not just at Ramrod?
Not just at Ramrod. Why do you always have to bring it back to Ramrod?
Well, because those bootlickers.
Well, that's true too. Those are called boot black. But anyway, there's always been bootlickers in the community. There have always been people that cozy up to power. And, this guy, Straka, I can't get into his mind. I don't know. But, I think he probably feels that he owes a great deal to the president now that he's been pardoned. So he's going to go out there and he's going to talk up the government. And, we live in the United States, rah, 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 USA, USA. Good for you. Talk them up as much as you want. But people that actually are educated on the topic are going to know that what you say is not the case. Cutting HIV funding, removing certain things that can be spoken about, taking away hard-fought rights for flags, for rainbow sidewalks, you name it, they're coming after it. When you call Pride Month Nuclear Family Month in so many jurisdictions across the country, that is an all-out assault on LGBT culture, LGBTQ plus culture. And one final thing that I want to say, and it might not seem apparent, but I think it's very much...
Because we're almost into 2 hours.
Shut up. I think it's very important that, in places like islands like, let's say, St. Lucia back during the slave trade, a lot of the people that own those plantations, they were white men that either lived in Europe, in France, or in England. Who did they get to administer the other enslaved people on those plantations? They were absentee landlords. They were absentee plantation owners. Who did they get? They got other folks that were also enslaved as well. So I'm glad that this person is able to have a rosy opinion about what this administration is doing. But just remember, at the end of the day, they're coming for our rights here at the table, and they're coming for yours as well. And I pray one day you'll see the light. So you want to take us out of here?
Absolutely. And I just saw something, and, just a glimmer of hope, with a positive moment in the transgender community. Sarah McBride was at a session recently, and the chair was insulting her and called her Mr. McBride. And the other, one of the other speakers there said that's absolutely unacceptable. And, he stood his ground. And luckily, Sarah maintained her composure and called him Madam Chair in spite of the insult. And the other gentleman sitting there, and I'm forgetting his name at the moment, basically said, you know what? We're not going to put up with this. And then, the insulting gentleman basically said, well, then we're going to adjourn the meeting. But, they made their point in a positive way, supporting the transgender
It's like chickens for KFC, chickens for Chick-fil-A. It's roaches for Truly Nolan.
Oh my God.
I just made that up in my mind.
You did, and you just went way off into space.
No, I didn't. Anyway, there is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by sharing them and subscribing to Queer News Tonight.
You didn't let me say that.